Okay, good evening to everyone. Good night to everyone. Good night. Oh, we have nobody inside there tonight, man. Same as it's me alone there tonight. Okay, we give God thanks for another opportunity we have to be gathered here in the house of the Lord. We are grateful for, all what transpired this morning, and we are anticipating another great time in the presence of God tonight. We want to just look to God in prayer as we start off our evening's program. So I'd appreciate if you stand with me while we just talk to God and ask God to take control of everything that's going to be done and said here tonight. Father, thank you. Thank you, Father, for another beautiful day, another excellent day, Father. In spite of the heat, Lord, we still say thanks, Father, because you said in everything give thanks. And you said for everything we give you thanks. So we give you thanks for everything you've done. And Father, we ask that you would be with us tonight. Lord, your grace, your mercies would be with us tonight, Father. You would give us everything it takes, dear Father, to have a great time tonight. I pray that, Father, whatever is spoken about here, Father, will be of great benefit, dear Father, to all of us, dear Father, who are here tonight, Father, and who will be here tonight, Father. Pray for, dear Father, your guidance and the wisdom, dear Father, for Brother Lando as he will speak to us tonight on matters of health. Father, I pray that, Lord, we will not only hear, Father, but would make the applications, dear Father, where it is necessary, Father. So, Lord, I ask you to take total control, and I ask you to bring glory to your own name, Father. Lord, even as we gather here tonight, so have your divine way in our midst, and be glorified, Father, in everything that we do here tonight. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, I just want to do a chorus. As we are about to start, we're not going to waste much time singing. I just want to do that chorus. I've got a river of life flowing out of me. Makes the lame to walk and the blind to see. Open prison doors, set the captive free. I've got a river of life flowing out of me. And after that, we're going right into our discussion. We're not going to waste any more time, but we're going straight into our discussion. So we're singing, I've got a river of life flowing out of me. Makes the lame to walk and the blind to see. Open prison doors, set the captive free. I've got a river of life flowing out of me. Spring up, oh well, within my soul. Oh well, and make me whole. Spring up, oh well, and give to me that life abundantly. Oh, and I've got a river of life flowing out of me. Makes the lame to walk and the blind to see. Open prison doors, set the captive free. I've got a river of life flowing out of me. Spring up, oh well, within my soul. Spring up, oh well, and make me whole. Spring up, oh well, and give to me that life abundantly. One more time, I've got a river of life, and I've got a river of life flowing out of me. And the blind to see. Open prison doors, set the captive free. I've got a river of life flowing out of me. Spring up, oh well, within my soul. Spring up, oh well, and make me whole. Spring up, oh well, and give to me that life abundantly. Hallelujah. No, we're not going to waste any more time. So you may have your seats. And it's good to have Carlton with us, Carlton Lando. He will tell you a little more about himself. So I cannot say too much. I think he's the best person to say whatever he wants, whoever he is tonight. So let's make welcome Carlton Lando as he speaks to us on matters of men's health. All right?
Good evening, everybody. This mic is good. You're hearing me from the mic? You hearing me? That would be better. I like to walk.
Praise, hallelujah.
All right. Yes, good evening, everybody. All right, it's a pleasure to be here this evening with you. I must say that I love actually talking to church people. I have been doing this for many years. Have been through many churches on the island doing public health education, and I actually like when churches recognize the importance of health and wellness. That is not just spiritual health, but if you look at the definition of health, it also includes spiritual health. And so when the opportunity is given to me, I always beckon to that opportunity. What we're going to do this evening, we're going to broaden the discussion as it relates to men's health. I do have this one where we talk about erectile dysfunction, but you would recognize as we go through this, the conversation will broaden a bit more. And it will encompass many of the issues that we see that are affecting our male men throughout the island of Dominica. Let me just give you a little about myself. My name is Carlton Lando. Most of you would be hearing or do hear my name and my voice on the radios, that is QFM and DBS. Tomorrow morning I will be on DBS at 6:35. And so you would be hearing my voice, and you do hear my voice practically every week. I am a clinical pharmacist by profession. I have been in that profession for 25 years. I have been trained, and I'm trained more in public health, and so right now in my career, I spend more time in terms of health education, health promotion, and so that's what I spend most of my time doing now. I have won several Caribbean professional awards. Last year, I won the second place for Caribbean Pharmacist of the Year from the Caribbean Association of Pharmacists in Guyana. I have won the Caribbean Community Pharmacist of the Year. I have won the Caribbean Pioneer Pharmacist of the Year. I have won the Caribbean Star Pharmacist of the Year. So I could say that I'm quite distinguished in that area, and I continue to, sorry about that. I need my phone to look at some statistics. That's the reason I have it. But I'm going to actually put it on silence. So. Yeah, so I have won those awards, but these awards has not gone into my head to the point where I have forgotten my roots. I am still the very same humble, calm person that every other person can stop on the road and ask a question at any given time and will more than likely get an answer. And that's basically who I am. Now, health and wellness is very important to me. The older that I get, the more that I recognize how important it is to invest in our health. And I have come to realize beside Christ, health is the next ultimate thing that we all need to sustain us. And health, based on definition, it's a state of well-being without the absence. So even if you have an ailment, or you're not feeling well, or you're sick, or you've been diagnosed with something, that doesn't mean that you're not healthy. So even if you have a disease, it's how you treat that disease and how you manage it that is going to help to sustain your general health and wellness. This evening, our focus is primarily going to be on men's health. And I'm glad that women are there, because women tend to take care of the entire family. You have a very, very important role to play. Many times men get diagnosed because their wives, their mothers, their sisters, a female intervenes and takes them to seek health care. Men are generally very reluctant to seek health care. And that's why it's important that women are here this evening, so that they can get the information, the credible information, and be able to share it with their loved ones. And even maybe if your husband or brother may not be here this evening, but at least you can say, this is what I learned, this is what you may have to do, and this is what I want to encourage you to do. So let's look at some disturbing statistics as it relates to men. So, men are more likely to have mental health challenges and disorders than women. And we see that every day when we walk in town. Most of the people who are mentally challenged, or what we call quote-unquote paros, they are males. Men are more likely to be on substance abuse than females. Alcoholism, drug abuse, cocaine abuse, primarily we see that in men. Men are more likely to be incarcerated than women. We look at our prison. I have been there to give talks many times. Most of the people that occupy there are males. Men are more likely to be in violent situations resulting in premature death than women are. Men are more likely to sort of drop out of school and don't pursue higher education than women are. A woman may get pregnant along the way, but some way, somehow, she may pick up herself again and get back in education, versus a man would do. So the realities are, our men are marginalized and our men are endangered in many ways. It is one that has baffled sociologists, psychologists in many, many ways. Why are so many of our men fall prey or make up these statistics that we're seeing? Why? Is it a case that physiologically we tend to act stronger, but mentally we may be weaker than women? Is it a case where the way we were socialized, where men were told that they should not cry, they should not exhibit any type of emotion, they should deal with their situation on their own? Is it these perceptions or ideologies that have caused so many of our men to fall prey into the statistics that I have outlined? Does it mean that the socialization or the way that men raise boys needs to change? And this might be one of the answers that we need to tap into, the way that we socialize our boys. I grew up knowing my father quite well. And sometimes people are totally bewildered and shocked when I say this, but I can never, ever recall once my father told me he loved me. And not that he may not have, but he just could not express love. I never know my father hugging me or telling me job well done or anything like that. Even when I became a professional person, my father still could not hold some conversation with me to express his feelings. But if someone had said something to him about me, he would have the brightest of smile. So I knew some way, somehow, he loved me, but he just could not express it. And many men in this room grew up in that era and may have some way, somehow passed on that same principle to their sons. So you may have young teenage boys, young men, who still have never gotten a hug from you, have never had a very viable conversation, a heart-to-heart conversation, where they feel that my dad has my back. When do we stop and break that cycle? So we've seen many of our young men who may have grown up in the church, subsequently gravitate, and you wonder, that's not how you were raised. But why have they gravitated to the things that you don't subscribe to? Why have they found solace in these things versus what you grew up, what they grew up in and what you taught them? Maybe the way that you taught them was one that you sort of demanded it on them, and they may not have gotten the rationale why it should have been taught that way. And so these statistics are all showing some of the errors that we've made. And I've always said that whenever I would have had children, I would aspire to be the greatest tangible father in my children's life, where they can tell me anything without having to feel judged. And I exercise that every day. Every day I exercise that. And it is one that seems to be affecting the male seed a lot. How do we as men communicate with our children? How do we communicate with our wives? That our children can see how they should communicate with their wives. And our girls can see how they will communicate with their husbands one day. My wife is here. And I remembered when we began dating, one of the rules that I said is that we will never use profanities to each other, no matter how angry we get in an argument. And as of this day, we have maintained that. So our children don't know to hear their parents cursing or using anything like that. Because at the end of the day, what are we going to say to our children? Is this the way that you express yourself when you're angry? And we see these things affecting the family a lot. So I wanted to start the discussion with this, but we're going to really get into the health component, because this is very sociological and it's really about the family. But I really want to get into the hardcore matters as it relates to our men. So, the month of September is seen as Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. Our statistics in Dominica is still showing from 2009 to 2019, 10 years gap, that prostate cancer remains the fourth major cause of death in Dominica. And we know that women do not have prostate. So if we're talking about the fourth major cause of death in Dominica, it means that our men are dying. And they're dying at high numbers, and they're dying prematurely. Our men get up every morning, They face the scorching sun and they work hard. And sad to say, many of them have gone beyond the grit in the boneyard and left a beautiful house with a beautiful wife behind, and subsequently somebody else is now in that house as second husband enjoying the fruits of your labor. That's the reality. Because you were so busy taking care of the economics, but then the health suffered. And you died prematurely. The wife cannot grieve you forever. Sometimes it's not even just about sex. She just wants a companion. Something went bad in the house, she has somebody to help her now with it. She feels fearful that somebody might rob her, she has somebody now. But they are benefiting from your labor because you did not invest in your general health and wellness. The prostate is one of the most important glands in the body. It is a gland that makes up or is part of the male reproductory organ. So most of us, we think of our penis, we think of our testicles, and that's it. We don't think of nothing else. But the prostate gland, it is located right at the back underneath the bladder. And it is that gland that helps to make semen. That substance that helps to transport the sperm. Now, most men have died prematurely because of the test that is done relating to the prostate gland. So a lot of the times, men are told that you need to check your prostate, and the first thing they say, I don't want nobody fingered my bottom. And immediately, they get the notion that it's a gay thing. It's a gay thing. And it's a Caribbean situation that has affected so many of our men. That's why so many of our men have died, because of a false ideology that's in the mind. A woman is pregnant, and she goes to see the gynecologist every month. And every month, the gynecologist has to put his finger in the vagina to feel the cervix. She's hospitalized, on the verge of giving birth, and every 30 minutes or so, the gynecologist has to come and insert his finger in the vagina to feel the cervix. The very same thing is applicable to the man. Based on where the prostate gland is located, that is the only way to access the prostate gland is to go through the rectum. Now, I say to men all the time that I don't think no doctor leaves home and is excited to push his finger in another man's bottom where poo comes out. So if you think of it that way, you'd realize that it's not a thing that doctors truly enjoy doing. It is just one of the passageways to get to the prostate. And most doctors, that procedure takes less than 2 minutes to be done, believe it or not. I have done it, and it took less than 2 minutes to be done. It may not be the most comfortable test, but I have always said 5 minutes of apprehension or discomfort is much better than months or even years of pain and suffering and spending lots of money. There was a gentleman that we were ordering a cancer drug for. He had prostate cancer, and we were ordering that drug for him. He had to use that injection, one injection, every 4 months. And that one injection every 4 months was costing $12,000. He still died. And this was somebody that had worked well in the public service, had done well, but subsequently he had to get help because he couldn't sustain that $12,000 every 4 months. He became broke. And again, he was diagnosed too late. So that gland helps us with our erection. You want to have a very firm erection, have a healthy prostate. Because the men who have prostate cancer or have enlargement of the prostate where they're on medication will tell you that their erection is also affected with prostate problems. So if you want to maintain a great erection, to be able to have comfortable and exciting sexual intercourse, you have to take care of the prostate. Now, there are 2 tests that are done with the prostate. There is the blood test. That is the blood test that checking the amount of antigen. That's a special hormone. What the levels are like, because if the hormones are very, very high, your chances of developing cancer of the prostate is high. So we do that blood test. You go to the lab, they put you to sit, they take some blood, and within a day and a half, your results is here. Now that test is very good, but it is not enough to confirm and to guarantee you that you do not have prostate cancer. So the blood test only gives you the level of the hormone that can cause the cancer. But it does not deal with the texture of the prostate. Last year, there was a gentleman that I knew very well. He was a good customer of mine. And he came to see me in tears, very angry, because he traveled on vacation to be with his children and developed an obstruction in his bladder. Couldn't pee. A catheter was placed in, scan was done, and he had full-blown prostate cancer that had spread to his bones. And he was very angry because the doctor that he was seeing sort of gave him that assurance that the blood test was enough. He did not have to do the rectal examination. And he was furious because he felt he could have been saved. He subsequently died last year. Now, the digital rectal examination, where the doctor uses this finger to get into the rectum to fill the prostate, that test must be done together with the blood test. They should not be done, you do one and you don't do the other. So that insert finger feels the texture of the prostate. So the prostate is like a walnut. And it's supposed to be smooth in nature. Anytime it is felt and it's bumpy or it's rough, that is suspicious. And the doctor may say we need to do a scan to see exactly what's happening. So your prostate is supposed to feel smooth and not rough or bumpy. And so when we don't do the rectal examination, we are putting ourselves in a false sense of security. So we might feel that, well, I did the blood test and my PSA level was below 0.4 and I'm good. Or it was below 4 and I'm good. But you don't know what the texture is like. So you may have a normal PSA level, but then based on the physiology, the texture of the prostate, there is a problem there. And so that is why the digital rectal examination should be done. Any man that have passed the age of 40 should do that test. So once you have reached the age of 40, that test should be done. I always say to men, You have the choice to choose a doctor that you feel very comfortable with. Nobody's forcing you to just go to Dr. Tom or Dr. Sue. You choose your doctor that you feel very comfortable with, you have had a good professional relationship with. You see that doctor, and if the doctor is fully trained, the doctor will make you comfortable. So the doctor's supposed to be talking for you and letting you know what's going to be happening to relax you. So the finger is inserted, and then the doctor will do almost a circular motion to feel the prostate. And then he may tell you he feels that the prostate is enlarged, or he feels that the prostate is smooth enough, or he feels that the prostate is rough. The scan of the prostate is not a terrible procedure, but the biopsy is very uncomfortable. Because they have to access the prostate through your rectum with a needle. So it's not an easy procedure to be done. It's done in Dominica, at the hospital, at Medicus. It's not easy. And many men, they cry like babies when it's being done to get to the prostate. Because what has to be done, tissues has to be cut out of the prostate to send to the lab to test to see if it's what they see there is cancerous. And by so doing, if it's cancerous, they will be able to give the marker and tell you if it's stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4. And I've always said to men, why do we want to go through all of that when we can simply get our prostate checked, easy, and know our status? The medications are expensive. The regular monthly catheter that some of us have to put in that urethra. So think of where the pee and the sperm comes out. And that tube has to be inserted right in there all the way to your bladder because you cannot pee. And all of that is involved in the prostate health. I have seen men passing lots of blood when the cancer has spread. Cancer spreads to the bones. They're in a lot of pain. Sometimes they cannot pee. Or when they pee, they drop a lot of pee stays in the urethra. They put their penis back in their underwear, and all their penis gets wet afterwards. And if you're seeing these signs, as a male man, you should recognize that something isn't right. So you see blood in your urine, you should inquire about that. You recognize that when you sit, you're feeling a burning sensation in your bottom, and it feels very painful. It feels like there is a fire. It could mean that the prostate is severely inflamed, and that's what we call prostatitis. So you could have a bacterial inflammation there that could be serious. If you recognize that you have to get up in the night many times to pee, more than 4 times, that could be also a sign. If you find that you have difficulty for your pee to come out, so you stand and you're waiting and there's this big delay, that is something that you should be looking out for. That should not be happening. If you find that you're peeing, you start peeing, and then the pee just suddenly stops, and you're feeling that you're not empty the pee, there is an urge to pee more, and it's just not coming, that should not be happening. If you find that you are always getting UTI, urinary tract infections, you're always feeling a burning in your urethra, you always have a pain, you're always feeling you want to pee all the time, that should not be happening. If you see blood in your semen, so you have sex, and you ejaculate and you see blood in there, That should not be happening. You should not have blood in your semen. And guess what? A lot of men experience these symptoms and they get so scared that they do not talk about it. So they never tell their wife. I know of one patient, his wife was monitoring, and one day she just got up after him when she recognized he has been in the bathroom for a while. And when she went there unannounced, she saw a lot of blood in the toilet bowl. And he was experiencing that for a while and never told his wife. And so we men, we need to talk more. We need to seek health care when the need arises. Too many of us are dying prematurely, way before our time, because we were scared. We have to take better care for ourselves. So when last did you have your annual checkups? You were told that you're hypertensive, but you tell yourself you have a trace of high blood pressure, or you have a trace of sugar, and it will subsequently go away on its own. And you do nothing about it. And then you realize you're not feeling so much in your toes anymore, and you get up in the morning and your hands feel like needles and pins and needles. And then you realize that your erection is not strong anymore. And then you come to Jolly's, look for me to tell me what I have that I can give you for that erection. And believe it or not, that's the time when most men come to my office when they are not performing well in the bedroom. And they often think it's a quick fix to just write up something for you and tell you, go to the dispensary and get it. But it's way more than that. There have been many men that I have diagnosed with diabetes. Sugar level 300 and counting. Sometimes the machine cannot even give you a reading. And they did not know that they are diabetic. Or you tell them, okay, go to the lab and ask them to do these tests. Bam, a lipid profile, check your cholesterol, check your prostate, check your complete blood count, check your glucose level, do an HbA1c, and then you come back, bring the result to you, and all the red flags are there. That's why you can have an erection. Because if you have high cholesterol, it will prevent you from getting an erection. Because cholesterol is actually fat that's in your blood. There is good fat and there is bad fat. But if the fat concentration is too high, it begins to stick onto the arteries. So if you have a frying pan and you fried fish, and then after you fried the fish, you put it in the oven, and then 3 weeks after you pull back out that frying pan, you will start seeing that the oil begins to crystallize around the frying pan. So you will start seeing that the oil begins to get a bit harder. And you know that oil sticks up on pots, and if you don't scrub them often, the pot will just start changing its color. That's the same thing cholesterol does to the arteries. So if it's not managed, subsequently the arteries will begin to clog, and oxygenated blood with key nutrients that is supposed to enrich the body and the cells will not be able to go through, and those cells will starve, and subsequently you can die. So the very same thing happens to the penis. If it's not getting the nutrients and that rich blood, because you have blockage in the arteries, then you will have erectile dysfunction. Men who have uncontrolled blood pressure are more likely to have erectile dysfunction. So if your blood pressure is not controlled properly, you are more than likely to have problems with your erection.
You did not mention tonight in the discussion before you started whether it was interactive, whether we could ask questions.
Oh, yes.
Is there time there's going to be questions asked?
You can ask a question if you
No one was asking for the...
Okay, yes, at some point you can always ask. Yes, we want it to be very interactive. So yes, you can ask a question at any point. The other thing too that we see a lot, people saying, I have a trace off. Well, the doctors say in a very cavalier way, I have a trace of high blood pressure, or I have a trace of diabetes. You cannot have a trace of these diseases. You're either hypertensive or you are not hypertensive. It's rather you say that I am hypertensive, however, my blood pressure is under control or is managed properly. I'm diabetic, however, my sugar levels are managed properly. I have begun to make modifications in my diet, in my lifestyle, and so I have seen that my sugar level is normalizing. Diabetes is one of the major metabolic diseases that causes erection problems in men. 90% of men with diabetes will have erection problems. 90%. Particularly when the sugar levels in the blood are not managed or controlled. Why? Because diabetes damages blood vessels. It damages our blood vessels in our feet, in our hands, and oftentimes we lose sensation, and that's why objects actually get into the flesh and we don't even know. And so an object is launched, a glass bottle is in your skin, in your flesh, and you don't know. And then one day you just start smelling something in the house and you wonder, what happened in the house? Something died, but you have that smell and you don't even know. So you have end up having what we call necrosis, where the cells in your feet begins to die because bacteria gets in there and it invades all of the cells and begin to kill the cells. And then oxygenated blood cannot circulate there because the cells are dead, and then you have to be amputated. And that's what happens. You get infected, and then subsequently, a part of your body has to be amputated. The very same thing happens with the penis. If the sugar levels are too high, it will damage blood vessels there and will impact your erection function. So that's why it's important if you have diabetes, you've been given medication, you've been told to lose weight, you've been told to exercise, you've been told to modify your diet, eat less carbohydrates, eat less, sweetened beverages, and all of these things. It is important to adhere to these advices. You are more than likely to get problems with your eyes. You are more than likely to get problems with your kidneys because diabetes that is uncontrolled and blood pressure that is uncontrolled will subsequently begin to damage your kidneys. If your kidneys get damaged to the point where it is irreversible, then you will have to be on dialysis. Dialysis is usually 3 times a week. You have to be on a machine for 2.5 to 3 hours, 3 times a week. There is a pending hurricane. Let's say that there is a pending hurricane going to be affecting Dominica. You have to find yourself to the hospital and be hospitalized because you cannot live without dialysis. And all of these are complications of these chronic non-communicable diseases. You can lose your sight if your sugar level is not controlled properly. Hypertension is one of those cardiovascular diseases that is affecting all of us in Dominica. The number 1 cause of death worldwide is cardiovascular deaths. More people die of complications of hypertension, stroke, and brain aneurysms. So your brain, a blood vessel rupture in your brain, and you drop down dead. And heart attacks. All of these are cardiovascular health risk. And many, many of us are walking around with these diseases and we don't know. We don't know. Many of us are very careless when we've gotten those diagnoses. We tell ourselves it's not true. We tell ourselves the medicine's not going to work. We tell ourselves I don't want to be on this medicine for life. We tell ourselves that that too shall pass and God is going to heal me. And so I don't need to be on these medicines. And I see it every day. I see it every day. And sometimes it saddens me when people really become so ignorant that they do not want to accept the facts that if you do not intercept and control that particular disease that you have now, subsequently it will create many more complications for you. And those complications will end up breaking you, putting your family in a very tight economic status, or sometimes having to cause even your spouse to give up their job. Let's say you get a stroke and you are no longer able to do nothing for yourself. The family now has to get a caregiver to take 24-hour care of you. They have to buy diapers, they have to protect you from bed sores, they have to get a special bed for you, they have to get a special nurse for you, and the list goes on. And we know those things. Mental health, and I'm touching everything tonight. Men are more likely to experience mental health disorders than females. One of the main reasons is that men do not like to talk. When men really need to talk, that's the time they shut up and they say nothing. So they're hurting, things are bothering them, and they say nothing. But this head that we have here, why is it on top and not below? It can explode. The same way you take care of your eyes, and if you bounce your toe, you will take the time to care for that toe. It's the same way you have to care for your mind and your mental and emotional health. Men, if you have to cry, cry. If you're sad, speak to somebody about it. If you're hurting, speak to somebody about it. Last year, I had to take a gentleman, a young man, to the hospital urgently because he had attempted suicide mere hours before coming to my office. And something, he said he heard me on the radio talking, and he said that I sounded so caring and trustworthy that he had to come and see me. And he spent about 3 weeks at the psychiatric unit because he wanted to take his life. And we see there are a lot of people who are attempting suicides. We just don't know about it. There are lots of people walking with suicidal ideations. They want to kill themselves. And once that begins to happen, it means that you are mentally ill. And it means that we need to really try our best to stop stigmatizing mental health disorders. The same way we don't stigmatize diabetes and cancer and hypertension, and we're very empathetic to people with these illnesses, the very same way we are to be with people who have mental health challenges. Too many times we judge, and people suffer in silence because of this phobia that if they go to the hospital, When they go psychiatric, everybody will deem them as crazy or mad, and they will never be the same again. And we need to change that narrative. The very same way your chest can hurt you, and the doctor can run tests and tell you something is wrong with your heart, the very same thing, something can happen with the brain, where the brain is overloaded with issues, matters, things that are really serious. We have a lot of grown-ups who have gone through terrible childhood days and are still struggling with them. Physical abuse, sexual abuse, traumas, and they are in church every day, but they're suffering. I'm telling you, they're suffering because they have difficulty finding somebody to have a conversation with without being judged or stigmatized or prejudiced. If you cry, that doesn't mean you're weak. I swear to God, my office is like a hospital these days. Every day people come to my office. And the things that I hear from people, I know that there is a lot going on out there. It's amazing. It's very, very disturbing, the things that are happening to people. So we have to really begin to talk more about mental health challenges, bipolar depression, clinical depression, schizophrenia, manic depression, anxiety disorder. All these things, they affect people. Bad. Really, really bad. And they're just sad. A lot of people are just sad. We have a lot of men who are really, really sad. They just act as if they just go through the motion. So we have to begin to have this discussion. We are not just physical, we are also mental and emotional. We have feelings. And so how we communicate with each other in the home, that is important. How we support each other. Can you say something to your wife or your husband in a manner that does not make them feel worse? So somebody comes and they says to you, boy, I'm just feeling so depressed. And you just take it like, oh, every time you're always feeling away, you're always feeling away. But you never ask, what is really going on? Speak to me. How can I help you? Maybe I'm not the right person, but if I can recommend, maybe you need to see a psychologist or a psychiatrist, I will come with you. I will be there for you. Give that support. And not because you're into church and you know God, it means that you're exempted from these challenges, because they do affect and can affect any one of us. So we need to take care of our minds. Be kind to our minds. Be kind to our bodies. What are we eating? How do we feed ourselves? What are we feeding ourselves with? And that is another thing that is affecting us. I was at a talk in Marigot recently, and I was saying to wives, stop giving the men all that meat. If there are children in the house, give the children most of the meat. They are the ones that need the most meat. They need the most protein. When men reach the age of 40, 50, they don't need plenty meat, especially red meat. And that is what causes a lot of complication in men. Men not supposed to eat plenty red meat because red meat doesn't do very well for the prostate. And red meat doesn't do well for the heart either. It increases your bad cholesterol level. So all the beef and the lamb and the shellfish, the conchs and the lobster and all these things, we should not be eating those things, too much of those things. You have to watch your carbohydrate level. If you are at the age of 50, as a man, based on your height, if you're 6 feet, you're supposed to be at least 185 to 190 pounds for the most. If you're 5'7", 5'8", you're supposed to be at least 160 pounds. And these are things that we take for granted, our weight. But our weight, if it's not controlled, it is a risk factor for cardiovascular diseases. So we have to mind our weight. We have to look at the value, the nutritional values of the foods that we consume. You feel like eating KFC, but you have some cashew nuts and a mango in the house. Which of the two is better? What is the nutritional value you're going to get from the cashew and the mango versus that KFC? And that's how we have to rationalize. Don't eat food because of emotions. Eat food for nutritional value. Eat food for nutritional value because I know it's going to do this and that for my body versus what's on the other side. So we need to take better care of ourselves. A lot of the issues, health issues that we see affecting men are generally, one, physiological issues, the way we take care of ourselves, the things we put in our body. Most of our men abuse drugs, alcohol, tobacco, marijuana, crack cocaine, these things. Our bodies were not designed for these things. You know, so when we put those things in our bodies, they will have negative impacts. And when we get addicted to them, we know what's going to happen. You cannot have a healthy body. You cannot have a healthy lungs if you put in things to kill the lungs in there. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Now, for the men who are here, if you are going to have your annual checkup, I'm going to tell you some tests that you should do. So if you have a pen and paper, you can write them down. So when you go to do your checkup, you'll tell your doctor, I need to do this, that, this, that. So if you go to do your annual checkup, let us say that you are above the age of 40, you should do a complete blood count, a CBC, a complete blood count. With the complete blood count, we're looking at your red blood cells, your white blood cells, your hemoglobin, the shape of your cells, are they in the right shape? We're looking at your iron level, your sodium level, your potassium level, your magnesium level, all the minerals, everything. That's what this blood count is going to be looking at. Your PSA. That's another test that you'd want to ask for. Your PSA. You want to do that. We're seeing a huge spike in Dominica in diabetes. A lot of people are developing insulin resistance, and they don't know. So it means that the pancreas is not producing enough insulin to neutralize or dilute the excess sugars in the blood. And many people are walking without they know with diabetes or pre-diabetes. So you may want to do an HbA1c test, HbA1c test, and that is a test that basically quantifies your sugar level within the past 90 days. So you might go by which church, and the nurse will, by which church, will prick you, and you will get your sugar level as it is now. But it does not tell you whether you're diabetic or not. That is not enough to say you're diabetic. So if there is diabetes in your family, you had brothers, you have had sisters, your mother or father was diabetic, you want to screen as well for diabetes. So you do an HbA1c test, you do an insulin resistant test, and you do a glucose tolerance test. So those are the 3 tests that you check to make sure you're not diabetic. The glucose tolerance test, well, they'll give you something sweet to drink, and then 2 hours after they check your they will check your sugar and see what it's like. Right. Then you want to do one of the common things we see now too, an H. pylori test. H. pylori test. The H stands for Helicobacter and the P is pylori. Now that's a bacterium that we see a huge spike in, particularly after Hurricane Maria. And this is the bacterium that causes stomach cancer. So it's the same, that's the bacteria that causes peptic ulcer, stomach ulcer, and stomach cancer. It is a very easy test. It is done for a stool culture. Take some stool, you send it to the lab, and they can get your results right away. So it's called an H. pylori test. And that is a test that's becoming very popular now, and it's becoming very worrisome in Dominica. If you speak to any of the gastroenterologists, they will tell you many people are working with this bacteria in their body and they do not know. And time they don't wink, they've been diagnosed with cancer in the stomach and it's too late. Yes. Somebody has a...
Oh, what are some of the symptoms for that test, the pylori?
I like that question. Good.
Yeah.
Good question. So, generally, what you may experience burning sensation right here in your epigastrium. We call this area your epigastrium. So your epigastrium is, gastro means stomach, epi means above. So the area above the stomach is called the epigastrium. So you might find yourself always feeling a pain there. So one of the things I listen to, test yourself. So push your finger in there. And if it really feels sensitive, that's not supposed to be. If you find yourself always belching, you're belching and you're belching and you're belching. If you find yourself always having acid reflux, you always feeling acid coming up. If you feel that your food is not digesting at all, every time you eat, you're feeling the food just staying there and it's not digesting. It's a process we call peristalsis. So if the food is not digesting in a timely manner, that is also a cause. If you see blood in your stool, especially if the blood is very black, so it's not red blood. If you see red blood, it means that you may be developing hemorrhoids, bright red. But if you see black blood, like almost tardy blood, it means that it's coming up high up there, high up in the stomach, right? If you find that you always feeling a bitter feeling in your throat and in your mouth, okay? If you find that you're always having bad pains, cramps, these are some of the symptoms of H. pylori. Now, H. pylori is a microorganism that is spread in a very weird way. So it is one of those nasty germs. So it can be spread, it is usually spread from the fecal oral route. So from washroom to mouth. So if you go to a restaurant, they don't have things to wash hand and so forth, you shouldn't buy there. So if you're using the washroom, not washing your hands, because of Maria, many of us, you drank pipe water, we drank river water, we saw the spike. So a lot of the water was contaminated with this microorganism. And believe it or not, somebody who has that organism inside of them, you can also get it from kissing that person too. Personal kissing. You can get the H. pylori transferred from one person to the other that way as well. So that's the test that is very, very important. I remember when my aunt was diagnosed with stomach cancer, when she was experiencing all these problems, just after Maria, she did the test and she was positive. And the doctor wanted to do a colonoscopy for her. And she said to the doctor that she was going to England very soon, so she didn't want to do it. She never went. She went to England, but she went to England to die. She fell sick at her home one day, started vomiting very black vomit, and it was full-blown stomach cancer. Her children came for her, bring her up to England. She never saw her house when she left home. She went to England, didn't see her house, went straight to the airport hospital, and she died in England. That same organism, H. pylori, was there already, causing havoc. So it is one that lots of people don't know about, but you should ask for that test, particularly if you have never done it and it may save your life. Right? No, that's a gastroscopy. So the gastroscopy is usually one of the tests that the doctors will do as well with the H. pylori. So they will send a tube down into your stomach with a magnified projected light in there, and they will be looking at the stomach in a camera, with a camera, to see what's happening in the stomach. So if you have been spitting blood or vomiting blood, or you're seeing blood in your stool, these are things that the doctor will have to do an endoscopy or gastroscopy to see what's inside of there. Sometimes they find cancer, sometimes they find bleeding, sometimes they find a tear or a major ulcer. And an ulcer is the same like an ulcer that you would have on your skin. An ulcer in the stomach looks the same. And that is the bacterium that causes that ulcer. So that's why when you have ulcer, you must be given antibiotics. A lot of people say, antibiotics for ulcer in my stomach? Yes, because that bacterium is very stubborn. It is actually resistant to the hydrochloric acid in the stomach, and it can resist the acid. So the acid doesn't even kill it. The acid is in the stomach. That's in the stomach doesn't kill that bug. And so that's where strong antibiotics have to be given. And usually the antibiotics are given for 2 to 3 weeks straight. You have to be on that antibiotic. And we don't use one, we generally use 2 antibiotics to kill it. And after the doctor has treated you, then they repeat the H. pylori test again and see if it's gone. If it's not gone, you're back on another course of antibiotics again. Because, as we said, this is the microorganism that causes stomach cancer. And so that's why it's very important for this bacterium to be eradicated.
Okay, good evening. I have 2 questions.
Yes.
The first one, as it relates to the H. pylori and the water. What advice would you give to us? I know post-Maria, in terms of drinking the pipe-borne water that we currently have. What advice do you have for us? And also, with the exception of the PSA test, which is applicable only to men, are those tests also related to women? I know you're addressing men this evening, but...
Yes,
okay.
I will give some for women.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Thanks.
The H. pylori, and that's a good question that you ask. We always recommend all of us, as safe as we think our water is still prone to microorganisms. And so if you are drinking the pipe water, it should be boiled at 100 degrees Celsius before using, and not when the water begins to boil. So when it begins to boil, you let it boil for another 3 to 5 minutes, and then you put up the stove. So let's say you can boil the water in the evening before you go to sleep. You leave it on the pot. Next day you bottle it and you put it in your bottle and you can put it in your fridge. So you could do that, or you could do bottled water. But we should not be drinking water straight from the tap. Okay?
Okay, sorry, I was about to add the bottled water. How safe is it? Do you know?
The same thing. The bottled water can go through a level of purification. So it goes through a scientific purification process where it is stripped of many of the microorganisms. So it is better to do that water than the pipe water. The source water, we should be very careful with the source water as well, because of rodents. So we might say, well, the source water is pure, but it is also exposed to rodents such as rats and bats and manikou and agouti. And these rodents, they carry leptospirosis. And leptospirosis is a very, very dangerous, it is life-threatening microorganism that destroys the kidneys. It can just kill your kidneys. And so we do not, even with the source water, as much as natural as it is, we still recommend it be boiled. Because you don't know if there are goats and cattle and all of these above. And even a farmer using pesticides and weedicides above there. So it is still recommended the source water should be boiled as well. Okay? Well, I mean, we do, I mean, there are a lot of talks about the plastic bottles and some of the carcinogenic agents that is in it when it gets, but more when it gets in the freezer, not in the refrigerator itself, the freezer. That's where they say that some of the plastic chemicals emits or gets into the ice and can cause some type of certain cancers. But there's still a lot of information that is not totally factual about it as yet. All right? But yes, boil your water. Okay? So we're talking about the H. pylori. We mentioned that. The second one that you want to do, the next one you want to do is a TSH test. Thyroid, yes, thyroid stimulating hormone test. And that's one of the hormones that many times we don't pay attention to. So you might think that you are going through a major depression, but it's related to your thyroid glands, because your thyroid glands helps to control your moods. And so even when people are diagnosed with depression, the doctor must do a TSH test first to make sure it's not your thyroid glands that either hyper, overactive, or underactive. So it's important to do that, because some people get immense weight loss, or women might find their hair just losing, they're just losing their hair, right? And they end up getting what we call alopecia, but it's really to do with the thyroid glands. So the thyroid glands is another test that should be done as well in your regular clinical. And then based on your results, your doctor will determine how frequent it should be done. Okay? You also want to do a stool culture, right? So you want to do a stool test, just a random stool test. You want to check for parasites in the stool. You want to check for any blood in the stool. You want to be looking for things like that. So a stool culture should also be done as well in your annual. If you're above the age of 50, you should also do a bone density test, especially in women who have passed menopause. Why? Because all women have estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen is the main female hormone in your body. But as you begin to get older, it begins to decline. So that's why women will more or less get wrinkles, dryness of the skin loses its elasticity. You are more likely to get back pain and have to walk with a cane. You are more likely to get dryness of your vagina. You are more likely to lose sexual pleasure, like you're not feeling for no sex at all. You are more likely to lose your hair. All of these are because of the reduction in estrogen. And that estrogen can also cause your bones to be brickled and weak. So your bones can get soft and your bones can get weak, and you are more likely to get fractures. So that's why more women get hip fractures than men would get a fracture. More women will walk with canes than men will walk with canes because of the reduction of estrogen. And so if you're a woman above the age of 50, it is recommended that you do a bone density test as well to see how prone you are and what is the status or the integrity of your bones. That is very important as well. Yes.
Jen. I have a question regarding the thyroid. I do have enlarged thyroid glands, and I would like to hear from you. How do you treat the thyroid glands if they're enlarged, and what are the negative impacts the thyroid medication may have on the other parts surrounding the thyroid?
So the enlargement of the thyroids, normally we use thyroxine as one of the treatments, levothyroxine. It comes in different strengths. It's what we call a narrow therapeutic index drug. And so if you are taking thyroxine, I'm not too sure what medicine you might be taking, if it's that's what it is. Thyroxine you take? Right. So if you're taking thyroxine, you would recognize that you have to do periodic blood tests off and on for it, because the levels are very narrow. And if too much thyroxine is secreted in the bloodstream, it can cause toxicity. So it's what we call a narrow therapeutic index drug. And these drugs are essential, and you may have been told that you may have to be on it for life. You may have to be on it for life. I'm not too sure how many micrograms you're using, if it's 100, 75, 150, or 80, 82, or 80, 81. But it comes in different strengths. This is a very common disease now we're seeing, and it is a hormonal disease, and oftentimes it should be monitored by the endocrinologist. So I'm not too sure who you're seeing with it, but we do now have an endocrinologist on island. The endocrinologist is the expert that is specialized in hormonal problems, hormonal diseases. So normally the endocrinologist or the ENT or the ear, nose, and throat specialist, they also do a lot of studies and work in that area as well. In terms of the medication has to be taken at the same time every day, preferably in the morning on an empty stomach. It is best taken an hour before you eat, and should be taken with a full glass of water. It should be taken preferably every time at the same time every day, so that, because that drug has a long, what we call half-life, so one pill should last for 18 to 24 hours in the bloodstream. So if you take it at the same time every day, time you are about to take your next dose, almost all of it would have left your bloodstream already. No, it's supposed to be taken on an empty stomach, so it's supposed to be taken before. Oh, half. So what is your strength you're taking? You don't know. So you need to remember your strength. That is important. Even if you take out a picture of your medicine, store it in your phone as a photo, so that if something happens to you, you may not, let's say something happens to you, you cannot speak, at least your relative should know what medicines you are on and the dosing. So that if you're taken to the hospital, they know early o'clock what medicines you're on and what doses, because they may not have your notes. And then they might give you something that might be contraindicated to your medicine. So that's why it's important. For another place, for any medication that you are on, let your family members know the names of the medicine, write them down, put them somewhere in your purse, put them somewhere in your wallet, let them know where your medical books are. So if there is an emergency, they can walk with that to the hospital or the health center, so that you don't have a problem. Okay? In terms of the females, so we were saying, again, your pap smears are important. Your breast examinations, a mammogram, are important. Your breast self-examinations, that should be done the week after your period, if you still have period. That should be done as well. A mental health evaluation. And that's one that we don't hear much about. But every one of us should have a meeting, an appointment with a psychiatrist at least once every 4 years. And we don't hear about that. People don't talk about it, but it's very important. You may have a mental health disorder and don't even know. And you might be wondering, but why auntie always behaving that way? Or why uncle always behaving that way? And that person don't even know. Because there are so many medical mental health disorders that will just amaze you. So for example, you may find a grown-up eating cardboard or eating dirt or eating something weird. And that is a medical condition we call pica. And that is actually linked to obsessive compulsive disorder. Or you may find your mother like to hold up things, and you find the house filling up with things to the point where you can't get a space to walk. That is a mental disorder as well. Hoarding. And that's a separate mental disorder, where you have to take the person out of the house and get them away and help them because they're depending on something. So there are a lot of different ones. Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's disease. All these are diseases that can affect the middle-aged and upper-aged person. And sometimes we think that mommy is wicked. Look, the toilet right there, and look, she poo in there. And don't realize that dementia is a mental disease that affects certain transmitters in the brain. So your mom knows this is the toilet, but that part of her brain is not working to tell her this is the toilet. And so she thinks, here's the toilet, and she poo here. But you don't understand how that you just can't understand that. And you hit your mother too lash and tell her she's wicked. It happens all the time. Or you gave your father breakfast, and then when you come there, he's telling you you're wicked, you didn't give him anything to eat. He's hungry, and he's telling all his friends that. And you are so angry because the brain, that part of his brain is not functioning well, so he doesn't remember. Or the part that deals with his appetite is not working very well, so he tells you he's not hungry at all. Alzheimer's is one of the most debilitating and dangerous disease. It's a sad, sad, sad disease to have because the brain is actually shrinking. That's what happens. Your brain shrinks. So your brain is just getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and you begin to lose. It affects all the transmitters there, and you begin to lose things. You can remember children's name, you can remember where you are, all these things happen. So it's a lot. It's a very debilitating disease to have to deal with. But the important thing is to know these things. Know these things. Recognize your body. Pay attention to your pee. Watch your pee. Watch your poo. Don't just flush. Watch those things because they are saying what's happening inside of you. You're not eating anything black, and for the past week, all your poo is just black, black, black. Something is not right. Huh? Carcotin is not supposed to make your poo black. If you take iron tablets, it can make your poo black. If you take things like spinach and so forth, it can make your poo greenish. Yes, greenish. If you drink radish or beet, it will make your pee and your poo reddish. Right? Beet juice and radish, they will make your pee and poo reddish in color. So don't get too scared if you have eaten that and you see that and think it's blood. But if you know you don't eat anything like that and you're seeing these things, you have to look. When you wipe, you look as well at the tissue because they can say a lot about what's happening inside of you. The same thing if you vomit or if you have a bad cold and you're putting out mucus, you look at the mucus as well. So you can see and it can tell what is happening to you. Another thing I want to say quickly, the color of your pee. So some of us like to see our pee white. Boy, my pee white, it's good. That's not good. Your pee not supposed to be crystal white. If you drank coconut water, a good amount of coconut water, or you drank cane juice, those are electrolytes, so they will cause you to pee very often, or even a beer or a few beers. Right? So that's what will happen. But if you find you go into the washroom and you pee and it's very normal color, like almost colorless, like just there, white, and in making a lot of what we call chim. That's not good. If that's happening often, it means that your kidneys may not be functioning very well, and they are not filtering the toxins from your blood. If your pee is getting very dark yellow to the point almost where it's getting brownish, that is not good either. It means that protein from the kidney might be getting into your urine, and high levels of protein in the urine could be a form of cancer of the kidneys. So that should not be happening. If your pee is very kind of dark yellow to the point almost orange, it means that you are getting dehydrated. It means you need to drink more water. You are dehydrated. So you need to drink more water. Your pee is supposed to be almost like a faint, nice fainty yellow color. Nice fainty yellow color. So you know that the kidneys are functioning well. It's removing the toxins from your body. You will still see sometimes. You will still see sometimes. You will still see the difference. You will still see difference. It will change the color of the water. But these are things that you have to be looking at. If you find that the pee looks like a mixture of yellow, but you still see a little brown, you have to wonder, sometimes it could be blood as well, a mixture of blood in the pee. And you're not supposed to have blood in your pee. And sometimes it could mean that there might be a stone in your kidneys. So you may have a kidney stone that might be causing an irritation and causing the bleeding. So you'd have to do. The doctor will always recommend a scan of the bladder and the kidney in that case. Yes.
Okay, good evening. Going back to the water I'm drinking. Nowadays it is so hot and everybody's saying I want a PC cold water to drink. Do you think this is a good idea? Because I myself, I don't really like PC cold water. Like for example, if I go buy Bolo and buy a juice, I say, Bolo, I don't want ice. So tell me something, during that hot weather, is it healthy to drink that cold water or not?
Right. And that's a good one. Generally, from the research that has been done, it doesn't matter whether it's cold or hot. It can be taken. There has been, the cold aspect of it has been linked to fats, body fats, and whether it sort of inhibits the metabolism of fat or make fat melt quicker. So that's the link there. But I personally prefer room temperature water. But there are some people that just like the cold water, they feel better. And so once you are drinking water, and right now we should be drinking water. All of us should have a big bottle of water by our bed, because even while we sleep, we are sweating. We are perspiring. Okay? And so you want to hydrate your body. You get up in the night to pee. When you get up to pee, you drink some water, you go back into bed. Okay?
Okay, so going back.
And then there's a question after from him. Yes.
How soon after meals someone should take in any juices?
That's a good question. Yeah. Right. God made us in such a good way that we have salivary glands. And you'll recognize that whenever we place any type of food in our mouth, whether it is sweet, whether it is sour, whether it's bitter, our salivary gland comes into action and begin to secrete more saliva to help in the process of breaking down the food. Juice or water was never meant to be taken whilst we're eating. Those should be taken at least 15 to 20 minutes after we have eaten. So our salivary glands is there to help to break down the food, give the food enough moisture that we don't choke. And we will not choke. Right? We will not choke. What is the problem we have is that we don't take enough time to chew our food. So we eat too hurriedly. And that's the problem we have. And so we feel that we have to drink water or drink juice to help us to make the food more passable. But really and truly, we should be drinking anything, whether it's juice or water, 15 to 20 minutes or 30 minutes after we have eaten. So it means when it's lunchtime, We should leave the phones alone. We should, if there is somebody out to see us, we'll tell the person we're having lunch, come back later, or I'll talk to you later, and take your time to eat.
Okay.
You will have less gastrointestinal problems.
Okay.
And some of us, we drink the wrong things. We drink the Coca-Cola, we drink the Sprite, we drink the malt, and many of us, the foods that we consume are already laden with carbohydrates. And it would mean that simple carbohydrates, things like sugar, pasta, rice, flour, they are metabolized, or they are broken down and get into the bloodstream very, very fast. So if you're diabetic, check your sugar before you eat a bowl of rice. Yeah. And just after you've eaten that bowl of rice, check your sugar again. Okay. And you will see how quickly it spikes. Or the same thing happens with bread or a piece of cake. Any carbohydrate, especially simple carbohydrates. The complex carbohydrates are the ones like the provisions, the dashin, the banana, the tanya. Those are complex carbohydrates. So they take a longer time to be broken down to get into the bloodstream. But the simple carbohydrate, that's why when somebody goes into hypoglycemia, the sugar level goes low, they get into a coma, or they give them something sweet, fast, and within seconds, it gets into their bloodstream and they're back up, revived. Okay? Simple carbohydrates. That's how quickly they get into the bloodstream.
Okay. So going back to the color of your blood, of the blood, what is
the blood?
Sorry, the color of the pee, the color
Yes.
of the pee. What is the relation between the sugar and the pee?
Okay. Now, sugar, yes, glucose can, if these glucose levels are very, very high, just like our pee has potassium, or pee has chlorine, right? So if you pee, so for example, it has ammonia, or pee has ammonia in it, yes? So when you pee, a lot of the substances that comes from the pee, ammonia is one of the main active ingredients in the pee. So let's say, one of these days, put bleach in your toilet, Clorox or bleach, and then come and pee after, and see what you're going to smell. You're going to smell chlorine. So ammonia plus chlorine give you ammonia chloride. So that's why we tell people don't mix chemicals when they're cleaning, right? Because you can create hazardous gases that can actually choke you and even kill you and exacerbate an asthma attack if you're asthmatic. So the very same thing with our pee, we have salt, we have glucose, we have ammonia, we have all of that in the pee that comes out. But if you have a high level, a high concentration, it means that the sugar level is too high. The glucose level is too high for there to be so much of it in the pee, right, that ants can start following it. It means that it's way too high.
Can you share a little bit on fruit, the sugar level in fruit? Because I know there's a talk about fruits carry a lot of sugar. Right. So can you just share some?
And that's good. We're talking about glucose, and that's in natural sugar that's in the fruit. But at the same time, sugar is sugar. Just like I tell people, bread is bread. Whether it's white, whether it's whole wheat, bread is bread. Okay? Sugar is sugar. And for a diabetic cannot, especially let's say your sugar level is, you're diabetic, but your sugar level is about 140 when you checked. If you're eating a mango, let's say you're eating a Julie mango, it has to be half of that mango, not the whole mango. Because it becomes a simple carbohydrate and it spikes and brings up your sugar right away. Many of our diabetics gets into complications during the mango season. A lot of them end up having major spikes in there. So things like ripe banana, right? And ripe banana has a lot of potassium. So if you have kidney failure, you cannot take foods that are high in potassium. So if you have kidney failure, you cannot take coconut water, you cannot eat ripe banana, right? You cannot take foods that are high in potassium. because potassium has to be broken down by the kidneys, and your kidneys are already not functioning, so how is it going to break down the potassium? Okay? So pineapple, soursop, mango, sugar apple, custard apple. These fruits, they have a lot of sugar in them. Papaya, watermelon has less because watermelon is more water. It's like what you call an electrolyte. So it's very good for dehydration. So if your potassium, sodium, and glucose levels are low, then watermelon would be a good fruit to help to bring back your electrolyte levels. That would be a good fruit. But these fruits that I mentioned, they are the ones that are laden with a lot of sugar. Even if it's natural sugar, it is still sugar. It is still sugar, right? Regarding the older people, like our seniors, constipation is a major problem in the elderly. Constipation. And the constipation has a lot to do with how the food is digested, what type of food is consumed, and the deficiency of fiber. So if you are not taking enough fiber foods, you are more likely to get constipated. If you procrastinate, so you feel the urge to go to the bathroom, and you tell yourself you're ready to go now, you'll go tomorrow, you'll go later, you are more likely to get constipation problems. The elderly, we also see a spike in hemorrhoids in the elderly as well, because a lot of them, they force. And a hemorrhoid is basically a varicose vein in the lining of the rectum. So a hemorrhoid is actually a varicose vein. So the same way you'd have a varicose vein on your feet, that's what is there. And that's why sometimes doctors give blood thinners, just like they'll give you a blood thinner for your feet if you have a varicose vein, they'll give you a blood thinner as well to help to reduce the swelling and to help the blood to circulate better. So that's something that you want to look out for in the elderly hemorrhoids. Okay? Dehydration is another major thing. Now that it's very, very dry and hot, the elderly is more likely to get dehydrated, and so you need to drink way, way, way more water and wear cooler clothing. Cotton clothing rather than polyester or nylon or any type of type of fabric like that. You want to do more cool. You want to have the fan on, you want to be cool, you want to have regular showers and stuff like that. That is very, very important. Fiber, right. So you can buy the regular, you can buy fiber like Metamucil in the pharmacy, or you can eat more whole grain cereals. You can have more cereals like Raisin Bran or Alpen cereal or Weetabix, that type of food. You know, you want to have a bit of that. You can have a little prunes as well. Prunes are rich in fiber, and roughage. So if you eat the raw fruits like covers and so forth, they have a lot of roughage, a lot of fiber, and they can help against constipation too. Okay? All right. Questions? Yes, ma'am. He's bringing the mic. Okay, I think he's bringing it to sir, and then afterwards.
Okay, good night.
Yes, ma'am. Good night.
In regards to the Alzheimer's, you were making the list at the time when you jump into the Alzheimer's. Is there any particular test that someone can do early enough that would show that you are on that upward trend?
Yes, there is usually what we call a cognitive test. A cognitive test is basically to look at the alertness of the brain. So they will ask, the psychiatrist will ask the patient certain questions. So they may ask the patient, for example, count backward for me from 10 to 1. Or they may tell the patient, name your children for me. So there are certain tests that they do, cognitive tests, to see how the brain is operating. Sometimes they even give them things like puzzles to do, just to see how they will do it. Things that they enjoyed doing before. From the families would maybe say, well, my dad used to love to do this or do that, and give them those tests to do over and see how they operate. They also look at behavioral changes as well in these patients. They look at the timing, because some people, they react differently at certain times of the day. So some patients with Alzheimer's, when, like a certain time of the day, they will get very, very hyper and become very stubborn. Another time, they're very, very calm on themselves. So all of these have to be documented when the evaluation is being done. So it's a cognitive test. But they will also do, the doctor will also do physical investigations as well, just to check the general health and a mental evaluation as well. What is she saying, please?
Okay, you're actually now saying that you already see signs, and then you bring the patient to the doctor. Blah, 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 this is the test they take. I'm talking about...
Before the signs.
Before the signs. Just as I said, you were given the list of things that we can have tests done, even if you are not seeing the symptoms of it. So I'm referring to that.
Now, with that test, we don't just ideally say, let's do that test. No. There has to be some type of factor that warrants the test be done. So it could be a family history, or you may have taken your mother, father, uncle, whoever to the doctor, and you begin to say to the doctor says, so how is auntie doing today? And then you begin to say, well, I recognize X, Y, Z. Remember, you don't know the symptoms. So you recognize X, Y, Z, the doctor is marking down, and the doctor says, okay, we're going to recommend X, Y, Z test done. But to say, ideally, to just say to a patient, this is one, it's not one of the primary tests that we recommend. There has to be some sort of, it's a cognitive test, and there has to be some type of correlation to diagnosis. And even the general practitioners, they would normally refer to the psychiatrist for evaluation, for the diagnosis.
Okay. So then, what you're actually saying now is like a neurologist cannot, is like send a patient to have some brain test
yes,
that
they
you
can
can
do that.
know that
they can do that, but
are
again,
deteriorating,
they can
and
do
look
that.
is this.
But as I said to you, the neurologist is not just going to just do that like that. He has to get signs and symptoms. And we do that in all spheres of, all sectors of medicine. You come to me, you say to me that you've been peeing a lot, your skin is itching you, you find yourself having the urge to eat sweet things. I'm starting to think of diabetes, right? I will now say, well, okay, let's do this, that. But at the same time, we will also do a urinalysis to see if you have a UTI, because a UTI could also send you to the bathroom a lot. So, but you must have, you cannot just, we don't just send somebody to do a scan like that.
Okay, farewell.
Yes.
So that means to say, then the list that you were given, I'm back on the list that you were given. Like when you go to the doctor, you were saying that these are the things, like you ask the doctor.
Those are general health,
things.
General health
Okay,
checks, yes.
General
health
right.
checks,
So
not specific.
Not specific.
Right.
Okay.
They are general health checks that we all should be doing.
Okay, so if
Yes.
you ask your neurologist to do that for you, he may think you're already gone?
No,
Oh,
he will
okay.
begin to find out what symptoms you
Okay.
may be exhibiting
All right.
to warrant that test.
Okay.
Because remember, scans, especially CT scans and MRIs, it's a high radiation test. It's a lot of radiation. Whilst you're doing it, cells are dying at the same time.
Monsieur.
Yes, you don't know that. Yes, cells are dying at the same time. And so it is not something that is just done because. There has to be evidence base to have it done. So even somebody, an elderly person, because some of these tests, we even check your levels, your blood count levels first. Because if you have iron deficiency anemia, where your blood count is so low, and you expose somebody to radiation, then you are further killing red blood cells, which can put the person in a process, in a major complication, right? Especially our cancer patients. So when they have to do these procedures, even chemo, they must check their levels. All our blood work is done. Let's see where the blood, if the red blood count is too low, chemo cannot be given because it kills good cells as well. The very same thing is applicable to any form of radiation.
So, can I ask, then, if you have done an MRI like about 2 years ago, then 6 months prior, you are now doing a CT scan. For the CT scan, I realized...
Radiation again.
Radiation again. So they give you a sack of that white sort of thing to take. Because you have to do the blood test before.
Right.
I guess I know, reading now, understanding what you're saying is your iron that they were checking.
Right.
And if it is too low, then they give it to you. If it is not, then they don't.
Well,
then
it depends on some of the scans. They would have to give you, sometimes they inject you with a particular chemical. That's a dye. That's a dye that's injected in the body. So that dye now coats the whole area that they want to do the CT scanning, and if they see any abnormality, then they can be able to spot out any abnormality much easier.
no, the one that I was doing, that when the blood test comes, if the iron is okay, then you don't take it.
Okay.
So
Right.
you almost even buy it for nothing then.
Right.
If when you reach, when they read what your blood test say, okay, you come in with it, you must come with it. And then when they read what your blood test is saying, then they decide you are not getting it or you are getting it.
Well, so you've answered your question.
Okay, now the next film, no, I did not know that. I realized no,
Right,
what I'm
right.
just, so there's a lot of, from what the question I asked, I realized there are a lot of other things that are coming up. Okay, so then, because you're saying about the radiation, what? Oh, okay, because you're saying about the radiation, I was asking, 2 years ago, the MRI, 6 months ago, I did a CT scan. It's not even exactly 6 months, maybe just around 4 months. Then I'm supposed to do a CT scan in December. I'm also due to have an MRI next month. What is your take on that?
Blood works has to be done before. They must do blood works.
All right.
Yeah. So even before, I mean, you make
before
it.
the CT,
yeah,
the
the
MRI.
doctors have to do the blood works.
Okay.
They must do the blood work.
All right.
If you realize it's similar to getting an extraction, you go to the dentist, you are due to have an extraction. Your blood pressure has to be done. If your blood pressure is too high, they don't do the extraction.
No follow-up?
Right?
No more follow-up.
So medically, we're trained to follow certain protocols that should be done. The very similar is if you've done an invasive surgery, you have to use embolic stockings to prevent blood clots. You use it before the surgery day and use it after the surgery. And all of these are procedures that must be followed to help minimize threats or dangers from happening. This lady had a question. Yes? They're bringing the mic for you.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Acid reflux.
Yes.
Acid reflux.
This speaker, that's why I think.
Just look in the mic. Acid reflux, how to incorporate certain habits that can reduce it, or whether there's a surgery that can alleviate it.
All right. Good question. So acid reflux is what we call gastroesophageal reflux disease, GERD, or what we call GERD. gastroesophageal reflux disease. So basically what happens is that when we eat, our food is supposed to goes through a process called peristalsis, where it's digested. All right, so the peripheral cells in the lining of the stomach releases hydrochloric acid to help break down the food, and then takes all the nutrients, send it to the different cells, and the waste goes down into the large and small intestine, and then subsequently we pass out the waste. Now, sometimes what we consume may not digest very well, and then we find that the hydrochloric acid, along with the flavors of the food, comes back up our esophagus, particularly when we are in bed. And it comes back up into our esophagus almost to the point where we feel like we're getting a heart attack or we're choking, and then your mouth fills up with this acid, and you feel bitter. It feels like it's bile and all of that. This is a gastrointestinal condition. And sometimes what is given, there is a valve below the esophagus that separates the esophagus from the stomach, a splinter. And it opens and closes when food has to go down, right? But sometimes in cases like that, it's not closing in a timely manner. And so acid seeps up. If you have too much acid, the volume is too high, it seeps up. Now, that happens generally when we don't eat on time or based on the foods that we consume. So let's say you had barbecue chicken in the night or you had fried chicken in the night. These foods tend to cause more acid to be secreted in the stomach, particularly at nighttime. And so therefore, you are more likely to have an influx of acid that the stomach didn't cater for. And then it comes back up. The splinter now is not properly closed, it comes back up. We do give medications for that. So things like domperidone, Maxolon, we have medicines that we give that work on these splinters, on this splinter, controlling that valve and combating or controlling the amount of acid that comes back up. We also use antacids, things like Maalox, Mylanta, Dica, these things. And what they basically do is that they neutralize or simmer down the acid in the stomach. So they simmer down. And then we have the PPIs. This is another class of drug, proton pump inhibitors. So omeprazole, esomeprazole, pantoprazole, these kind of drugs. They might be, you might know them as Nixium, these drugs. We use them as well. And these drugs block these splinters in the lining of the stomach that produces the acid. So then you have less acid is secreted into the stomach. Now, there are lifestyle modifications that should be adhered to or done to minimize GERD. So for example, our last meal should be at least at 7 p.m. We should not be consuming a big plate of food after that time. Vegetables and fruits can be very acidic, and so you want to minimize that at night time. Okay? Any food that is high in acid, chocolates, milk, and milk, yes, milk, dairy products, they turn to lactic acid. So when they are broken down, they get into lactose, and then after they get in, that's the sugary part of the milk, then they turn into lactic acid. And so they create the lactic acid plus hydrochloric acid causes more acidity. So you want to minimize these types of foods that you consume at nighttime. Nuts as well. Eating nuts, eating fried foods, eating baked foods. All these type of foods you want to minimize. Your dinner should be something very, very light. Some crackers, some herbal tea, that would be good for dinner. Nothing too heavy and too fat. This is the time the digestive system should be at rest, not at when you sleep in. The digestive system is working the whole night, and what will happen when you get up in the morning, you find yourself very, very hungry. And you're talking about, I ate such a big thing last night. Why I get up so hungry? Because the digestive system worked all night long. So what type, the foods that you consume, fried foods, baked foods, all of these, you have to minimize them. If you are eating these foods, they should be eaten at least 3 hours before bedtime. Okay? Yes, ma'am. That's it, ma'am? Okay? Yes. This lady, and then take you. You have a question?
Hello.
Yes.
When you have a mammogram taken, how long again you can go back to repeat it?
That's a good question. The mammogram taken depends on your results. So if you've had a clean results, your gynecologist may tell you you can come back 2 years from now, or you can come back 3 years from now. All right, but it depends on what is seen on the slides. All right, so.
Back in about 6 months, they tell me I come back too fast.
Right. So again, they would normally give you a gauge, a time in which to come back for the evaluation. Okay? Yes.
Okay, water again. Some people think our pipe-borne water is not the best as we to go and get the underground water, the spring water, the source water. Or should we boil it, or is it safe just to? Some people say you don't need to boil it, you can just drink it.
I think you were not there when we began. I did mention that. We had a good talk about that. Yes, both waters should be boiled. Whether it's from the source, whether it is from the pipe, they should be boiled. The source water, again, is exposed just like our pipe-borne water. Our pipe-borne water, the difference is that it goes through a chlorination process where some of the germs that's in it would be nullified or killed. But the source water as well, it can be contaminated through the water, through the water basin, because you may have farms close by, you may have animals close by, right? You may have pesticides, weedicides, animal dung, the stool, all of that could be sipped into the water. So, it doesn't matter. People say that, but you still want to be cautious. You don't want to take it. Because the very same source too can get contaminated if it rains heavily. You understand?
Okay. Varicose veins. What is the solution, and how can one reduce the growth of varicose veins?
Good question. All right, let me take Mr. Hendrick's question. I think he had a question, and I'll answer it too.
Oh.
Huh?
People want
No, not here, not in here.
The food we eat on the microwave, what effect does that have on our body system?
Varicose veins basically is caused by a cardiovascular disease we call peripheral arterial disease. Peripheral arterial disease. So generally, when you see varicose veins, it is often linked to high cholesterol. 90% of the varicose veins, when you look at them and you check these people cholesterol levels, one of the cholesterol or a few of them are high. Whether it's the low density, whether it's the triglycerides, whether it's the total cholesterol, it is high. And so what is happening, plaque, what we call the excessive fat, begins to block the arteries. And because it blocks the arteries, then you have the blood not circulating very well and can cause that condition. So first, there has to be dietary modification. A diet low in fat, no processed foods, no processed meats, right? Exercise, elevation of the feet, loss of weight. If you are obese, you should lose weight, because if you have chronic varicose veins, you are more likely to have poor blood circulation, which can later cause a break in the skin and can give rise to a chronic ulcer. If you have a chronic ulcer, then it means that at some point, you may have an amputation. So it's one feeding on the other. And then don't talk if you're diabetic or if you develop diabetes. Now, there has been some new information that came out just about 3 years ago. So now, any person that is diagnosed with diabetes, the doctor should do a cholesterol test, because there is a close link with diabetes and high cholesterol and vice versa. So you may have high cholesterol, then it increases your risk to diabetes as well. So those two, they go hand in hand. And I think that is why we're seeing so many of our people dying from these complications. So you end up having diabetes, and then later down you end up having blockage of the arteries, and then subsequently you get a stroke and you die. Okay? So varicose veins is one that should be very closely monitored, particularly looking at your cholesterol levels, the diet. Okay? Reference to the microwave. And just last week, I was looking at an oncology report that seemed to refute the claim that microwave gives cancer. Now, what the oncology report was giving is that if you are using the microwave, use it a breakable Pyrex dish rather than a plastic dish. So they were saying that the microwave itself is not as dangerous, but the plastic or what you have the food in may be what is emitting certain deadly chemicals that seeps into the food that predisposes you to certain cancers. Well, some people put something else over it, but the microwave, that is a good point that you raised too. Sometimes, like I like to use the Pyrex dish for my lunch at work, because we use the microwave at work to warm our foods, and I use the paper towel instead to cover my food rather than the plastic. So that's what I do. Okay? So again, I think similar thing with the plastic and the ice is now the similar thing. So some people use, to make ice, they use an old pot or something like that to put ice in it. Rather, a lot of the older people used to do that, used to make ice in old pots and, rather than these plastic things. No. Okay?
Yeah. Okay, and I was listening to, in relation to foods, eating foods and stuff, vegetables, carbohydrates and stuff. I was listening to a scientist. She said she did some research, and she was saying that it's not what you eat, but how you eat. All right, and then she's saying that if you were to take carbohydrates and stuff like that, then you need to take like vegetables before you take the carbohydrates, and because the vegetables will provide a shield and prevent the spikes, the very, very high spikes that you will normally get. We just did speak about the rice and then the high spike. She was saying that if you eat your vegetables first and then you eat, then it should minimize the spike that you that will normally have, and not cause your blood sugar to fly up all the way. So I don't know what you
I have not heard of that one, but it's a quite interesting argument, because many of these perspectives in medicine are argumentative. One person might particularly do a story on something, and then somebody will refute it and say it's not quantified enough. There is not enough evidence to qualify it as accurate. So, but it's something I would definitely look into and read, because most legumes or green leafy vegetables contain vitamin B12, which is cyclobalamine. They contain riboflavin. They contain pyridoxine. A lot of the B vitamins and iron as well. So I'm trying to see from a nutritional standpoint, how does these vitamins, how do they act as a barrier with the synthesis? So for me, it's a science thing. It is synthesis of carbohydrates. How do they, because carbohydrate releases sugar, polysaccharides and all of that. So how does that, so it's something for me that would have to be chemical, like I have to see the chemistry in it to kind of give it value, that it makes some sense to me. Yeah, but it's something I would definitely look into. I think it's an interesting argument that I'd want to read myself and see, on what basis, because there must be some chemistry that when you take the legumes, what does it release? And if it releases all these cytophytes, which is plant-based cells, if it releases all of that, how does it in one way capture the polysaccharides and the other monosaccharides, the type of sugars that would be released from the carbohydrate? How does it trap it to prevent it from spiking into the blood? So that's what I would want to know.
But necessarily spiking, preventing from entering the blood, but it will take a process.
Well, that's what I'd want to know, because that same process is what we call peristalsis. So what role does it play? So it's something I'd have to research myself or read, about. But good observation. Any other questions? Yes.
Talking about varicose veins, can a lot of standing cause varicose veins? Because I hear you mention cholesterol and all of that, but standing, because of my standing earlier on this year, I had to take leave from standing a lot because I've been standing a lot, and standing for about 33 years on your feet constantly, that can take a tune. So I was just wondering that maybe I should check to see my cholesterol and so on.
And that's a good point, the standing. We're recommending, if you have a job that entails, pharmacists stand a lot too. I'm not standing as I used to because I don't really work as a dispensing pharmacist anymore. But pharmacists stand a lot too. We recommend that if you do have a job that requires you standing a lot, the type of shoe that you wear makes a difference. So you wear preferably the air-packed sneakers that really fits as a cushion, right? If you're female, you may want to wear Verica stockings at times. You may want to ensure that you take breaks to sit and elevate the feet. And there is a new way of elevating the feet where you lie flat on the floor, you push your buttocks towards your door or your wall, and you put the feet up at 10 minutes interval. So the feet's supposed to be at the level to send back the blood to the heart so that the blood can be pumped and you can get a greater circulation going through the body. So that is something that is exercised now.
I started that.
You started that?
No, well, I supposed to do it for 20 minutes, but sometimes I tire. 5 hours, no. But you don't see when I change my position. I change my position.
Yes, but that is, so elevating the feet, you lie flat, you elevate the feet on the wall. You can, at that time, you can check your mail, you can talk with somebody on phone, and just to ease you up. But that actually is something that is now recommended.
I can tell you from experience that the first time I lift my leg up like that, I felt like something was really happening.
Yes.
Like something changed.
Yes.
In the legs. But as I keep on doing it, it's getting better.
So that is one of the exercises that we recommend for people who are suffering with peripheral arterial disease. Yes.
That's the same as the
varicose veins,
Yes.
circulation.
Yes.
Yeah.
exercising as well.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
No, it's not an exercise, it's putting your feet on the wall.
No, I mean just general exercise.
Yes. Exercise as well. Yes. Yes. Yes, sir.
Yes, Bertie. Besides chiropractic treatment, what other form of medication can someone use for the condition which affects the sciatic nerve?
All right. The sciatic nerve is the largest nerve of the body. It's located just around above the buttocks. One of the main causes of sciatica, which is the condition that when the sciatic nerve gets inflamed, it causes a condition called sciatica. One of the main factors is poor posture, poor sitting posture, using wallets in your back pocket, especially men, sitting on wallets. So the wallet is in your back pocket and you're sitting, right? It's pressing against the sciatic nerve. That can also affect it. Sitting for many hours at a time. If you are obese or overweight, that also predisposes you to it. Now, in terms of what can be done, yes, there is drugs that can be used. Swimming is one of the preferred form of exercises for sciatica. Swimming is one of the best form of exercises for it. Warm baths is also recommended. So if you can go to the sulfur ponds or warm bath, that will also help with the nerve reduction of the inflammation of the nerve. Because what it causes a bit of what we call neuritis. So it inflames the nerves and causes the nerve to twitch. So it feels like electricity passing through that area. It can be a very debilitating condition, meaning that it can impair your movement, your mobility, your flexibility. So it is one that can be very troublesome. But at the same time, too, it is one that may warrant having to lose weight if you're overweight, and at the same time to use the good shoes. So you should have shoes that have good insoles in them, shoes that are not too hard in the base, that could cause a bit of more pressure on the sciatic nerve, because the sciatic nerve ends in the feet, right down in the feet. So you want to monitor that as well. But chiropractor sometimes help, acupuncture sometimes help, heat therapy, and as I said, swimming. Those are what we recommend. Okay? Along with muscle relaxants, anti-inflammatory agents, we use those as well to control inflammation and to subside swelling and pain. Okay? There was something I wanted to discuss quickly before we end. Yes, somebody was going to say something? Okay, all right. Yes, before I end. Regarding men and their sexual and reproductive health. Sex is very important to men. Maybe more important to them than women ever think. And I always say that you may treat your husband the best. Cook him a nice meal, wash his clothes, take care of the children, all of that. And you're not having regular sex with him, he will not going to be happy. No matter all of those things you're doing. And a lot of men are having problems with their wives because of that insufficient sexual activity. So lots of men are at church, but they're not happy. So their wife sits right next to them, but they're like friends. We have a lot of people that have intimacy problems. Sex has to be at a particular time of the month, a particular day. If it's on Thursdays at 8 o'clock, it has to be in the same room every night. It has to be done the same way all the time. And it has to be when I'm in the mood. a lot of relationships are being affected. And trust me, the men come to me a lot. A lot, a lot, a lot. And I will not say if your husband came, but a lot of them come. And when you begin to talk with them, you realize it's a bigger thing, because a lot of them think they have a problem. Why am I not getting an erection when I want to have sex? But I've always said, before the erection comes, the environment has to be conducive for it. The environment has to be conducive. And not just the physical environment, the emotional environment. So husbands, we cannot call our wives nasty names, tell them all terrible things, and expect them to treat us nice in the bedroom. Right? And the same thing applies to the women. You cannot tell your husband you're tired all the time. And talking about your sex life in a marriage is healthy. And you cannot be too churchy or spiritual to not want to talk about it. You have to know what pleases your wife and makes her super excited, and she has to know the very same thing for you. What might please Jerry may not please you, and vice versa. There are a lot of men, their wives don't make love to them. You want your thing? I bend over, I turn over, you take your thing. I get up, I go to the bathroom, I go and clean up myself, I come back and sleep. And that's it. So a lot of men are inadequately taken care of, and some women are the same. So when you all met, in your earlier years, you were going in the chamber, in the closet, you were in all parts of the body. And now you just tell yourself, no, I don't need that. And then guess what? It happens right in the churches. I talk to a lot of church folks. John no longer feels that intimate connection with you, but he feels it for Sally. And you're going crazy because I'm doing everything for my husband. I'm washing the clothes, I'm cooking the food, I'm doing all of that. How could he feel for Sally and not for me? So we have to have those conversations. And I've seen a lot of the families at the church, because they come to me. I tell you, they come to me, suffering. I hope we have no children there. We have children? No? No children. I'm winding down, don't worry. So you have a lot of people married, sometimes they don't believe in certain things because of moral ideologies or religious ideologies or whatever. And they don't believe, so they don't try, they don't want to know, they don't want to do nothing. And I've always said to people, just as things, the TV may need to change in the house, there will be a time when the cup will have to maybe throw because you have had it for 30 years and it's changing color inside. The same thing has to be changed in the life of a couple sexually. And you have to find creative ways to keep each other excited. You have to. Because else, somebody or something will be fragmented, and subsequently somebody will be looking out. I know that many women, when they pass 50, they go through the menopause, they're not really feeling as such. And we want our men to understand women's plights as well, and the hormonal changes and what they experience. But ladies, don't use that as a typical example to deny your husband. Men are very funny. We are very funny creatures. And you know that we are very visual and we're very physiological. Whilst you guys are very emotional, you like nurturing, you like security, you like comfort. We like, our eyes can stray very fast. And as I always say, wives have to keep themselves nice. You have to keep yourself current all the time. So your husband will feel like he wants to be with you. You cannot have yourself throw down and put any old clothes on you, and your husband telling you don't like it. And you argue, you don't tell him, well, that's what I like. You see, it's not your clothes, it's my clothes. But he's telling you he's not attracted to it. So why are you not changing it? And a lot of the time, we don't want to have those conversations. But those conversations build great family. And a lot of the times, we don't want to talk about intimacy. There are a lot of people, when they have sex, the light has to be off. You cannot see me naked. I cannot see you naked. We don't want to talk about that. We don't want to go on a beach somewhere, have a little moonlight picnic with a little wine or something. You think that is, when I was young, I was doing that. No. You make the time. And a lot of men are in church, but they're having affairs, and that's the truth. Whereas the ladies will pray and not necessarily have the affair, and they will come to church and they'll pray with sister, and they'll cry with sister, and they'll ask pastor to pray for them, and let my husband come back. But the husband will have gone. Sometimes women make noise unnecessarily. Oh, I just make my bed. I just make my bed. You just come and just lie down on my bed. It's our bed. How did you say that? Couldn't you have said it better than that? Babes, I know you're tired, but I just make the bed. Go and take a bath now. I'll give you a massage later. Conversation. You see that? So quick, you go and bathe and wait for the massage. Because you know what the massage you're going to bring. But a lot of the times we don't. Our ladies need to learn how to speak. So they make their husband go out the house. So he'll go by the domino as a Christian man. He'll start playing some domino. And then fellas will start talking about other chicks. And then a chick will come over. He'll offer her a drink. And then God knows what else. So every day now you're at the domino table and he's spending less time at home because you run him off. You run him off with your attitude, bad attitude. I thank God for my wife. She doesn't do that. Honestly speaking, she doesn't do that. But that's important. If we want strong sexual relationship in families, we have to build families. And we have to build ourselves. It cannot be always about the children. We have to find times, date times. Sometimes my wife and I, we just close our room and we tell our children, it's mommy and daddy time. And it's not necessarily having nothing about sex. We just lie down in our bed watching TV, eating popcorn, having cashew nuts or whatever. And if we feel like being naked, like Adam and Eve in the bed, we just sit down watching TV naked. It's intimate moments. But you build in relationships. And a lot of the times people confuse intimacy for sex. And they're two different things. Because a lot of relationships are surviving only on sex alone, but they have no intimacy. No intimacy. So you cannot even dare tell your wife something you desire. Or dare go and buy a negligee and bring for her. And she asks you, where are you going with that? For me, I'm not wearing that.
Yeah,
because all you don't have that discussion. And sometimes people think that those simple things like that is satanic or not Christian-like and that kind of a thing. Right? And so we have to begin to build our families. Off and on, if you can afford it, take a cruise. Go somewhere with your wife. You're alone. Dominica is big. Put your wife in your vehicle, put a nice clothes on all you and go somewhere. Just decide all you go into Jungle Bay tonight and have dinner. And talk about all you said. Don't talk about Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Talk about all your relationship. My wife and I, we have done that all many times. We went to Kempinski one time for a weekend, and the first thing I did when I went in there, she was like, "Why are you doing that for?" Get a piece of paper and a pen. And we did an audit of our marriage. On a scale of 1 to 10, how happy have you been with me over the past year? On a scale of 1 to 10, and we grade each other. How happy are you with my communication? On a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you with our sex life? And we have those discussions. And then we sat and we went through each other's score. And we had the best weekend ever. And a lot of times people marry and they don't have those discussions at all. They just don't talk about that. So you get so routinic, work, home, prep for the children, that. If something passed in the night, it passed, and that's it. And sometimes the sex happens and it doesn't even really have a meaning, because there is no deep conversation that feeds the sex. And so we have to have those conversations. And we have to know what excites you, what excites her. And that is not being too overly spiritual, and we cannot have those conversations. And so if your husband tell you, "What, are you going to lie down with all them clothes on you now?" Just say, "Okay, babes, you have too much clothes. Okay, I'm going to take it out. Then put something else." Or should you ask, "What should I wear? What do you want me to put on?" Don't make noise with the man. And I find a lot of the times the ladies are the ones that make the most noise in the house. A lot of the times. Take the mic.
But the thing is now, we're talking about the men, but the men now, some of them are very selfish.
That's true.
They just come, they feel they have an erection, they hop on the wife, chook, they finish, and they turn it back like a dog. And they leave the wife attended. Then yes, she go now like Eve walking on the roadside, some other young guy meet her call, and she get attracted to him, and then yeah, things happen. But again, all these things go back to the Bible. The Bible says, love your wife even as Christ loved the church. And if you really could love a wife like that, no matter what situation you're going in, you can be able to be really patient and talk with her and see if you can get things working.
But then, again, that's where the intimacy comes in, where you have those conversations and you know. So if you have intimacy in your relationship, your sex life should not be like that. It would not be deficient like that, because the intimacy lets you understand the ins and outs of each other. You appreciate this is your wife's body, this is how you love it, you appreciate it that way, and vice versa. But a lot of the times we don't spend time with these things. Another thing too that is very important, giving gifts to each other. And you don't have to wait for that special birthday or wedding anniversary to do so. And sometimes just the simple things. Because you have to celebrate each other all the time. The children will subsequently leave the house and go, and then the two of you will remain. So you have to find ways to cope with each other. Because it's not easy. Many of us went through the lockdown and we had to be with wife and whole day in our house, and Sunday it wasn't easy. Because you really begin to you have to now take in certain things you don't like about your husband or your wife, because you're locked down, nowhere to go. Right? And some people, they survive, some people break up. They couldn't deal with it. And the statistics show that many people in America broke up. A lot of relationships broke up during the pandemic because they couldn't deal with, they now got to know the authentic side of each of them. And they realized that's the most time they spent together. They couldn't deal with it. And they end up breaking up. So conversations and honest conversations should be spoken. And that's where both of you can trust each other with information. That's why a man shouldn't marry a girl. He should marry a woman. And a woman shouldn't marry a boy, but a man. So that when you have those conversations, it is trusted. it is trusted. You know that you can trust that person with that information. You know, there are a number of men that come to my office and they will tell you that their wife doesn't make love to them. They can't remember the last time their wife kissed them. And so then I ask them, do you have bad breath? And they'll tell me, no, they're taking care of their teeth and stuff like that. And I'll say, so have you asked your wife why she doesn't kiss you? And they don't ask. So nobody talks about it. It just becomes a normal thing. And so these are things that families, married couples, should look into as well. How can we strengthen our marriage beyond just the biblical precepts and principles? What can we do as a couple to make us exciting, to always make us current? You know, just take some time for ourselves. Do things exciting. And that is important. So I wanted to mention that before I go tonight.
Okay. You said something very interesting. I recall when I raised up a young lady. She's big now, but I had her from 4 months old. And every time I come from work, she looked forward to something from me. Cake, any nice thing from work. And I noticed as a big person, I'm on my 50s and it's like my husband, you spoke about gifts. My gifts are not what people call gifts. When he comes home every day, I am so excited. As soon as he reaches, what did you bring for me? And guess what I want? And he knows what I want. And when he gives it to me, I'm like a little girl. Oh, thank you. You know, I am so happy. My Canip season. So he knows I like Canip. So I dream of my Canips when I don't have Canips. And when I say, you bring my things for me? Mangoes. You know, so these are the things, and peanuts, cashew. And I just saying, when we as wives, when you say that, people might think, oh, it's a big gift. Yes. But anything very small, the husband knows what you like and what you appreciate. And I look forward to it every day. When he says, I didn't bring anything, my shoulder sinks down. You didn't remember me today.
Yes. And that's really, really important because we see these things and a lot of, and the other thing too with us and as adults, and I will say that as we are running out of time, our hygiene can be a barrier in intimacy. Our hygiene. Sometimes, in particular with our men, we don't want to shave. We don't want to have our feet clean, have a little pedicure, our foot rough, and we think it's a human thing. It's a human thing. And the wife might be saying, maybe your foot rough here, and you're not taking the clue. Or the wife may not like the hair on your chest, or she may not like the pubic hair. She wanted to shave it. She might be shaved, and she feel like she don't like the smell. If she's telling you that, do it. Because a lot of these little things are barriers in intimacy. And I've seen it. It has come to my office. I know of a couple that came. The husband came first. And he couldn't understand why his wife wasn't having oral sex with him anymore. And he came to me. And I told him, well, you need to bring your wife. Let me talk with her and stuff like that. And it was his hygiene. She didn't like the smell, and she didn't want to offend him, so she just wasn't doing anything. So we need to clean our bodies. You know, men, a lot of the time we just think it's a macho thing to just, you know, pass a little soap on you. No, clean your bodies well. Your fingernails should be short and should be clean all the times. Your fingernails. Once, twice a year, you visit the dentist. You have your teeth clean. The toothbrush alone cannot clean your teeth. So you go to the dentist and you have your teeth properly, professionally clean. Right? You floss. A lot of men, they don't take very good care of their teeth. And then they have bad breath and they have a lot of tartar in their teeth and they expect the wife to want to kiss them. But it's not fair to the wife. You have to take care. You have to invest in your health, and all that is your health. Your hygiene. You still have grown men cannot clean their penises very well. And you have to literally tell them, you know, you're not circumcised, maybe your foreskin is a bit tight. You may need to circumcise because you will always smell funny. And these are all some of the barriers that affects the sexual reproductive life. People don't want to talk about those things. So people just avoid it and they just don't say nothing. But it should be spoken about. It should be. You slipping by this person, hey babes, are you smelling like that tonight? I don't like your smell, no? Maybe you should. But how we say those things, how we say it. Always remember you want to be sensitive and you want to be respectful to the person. So when we talk about health, it encompasses all parts of our body. And if we want to have healthy, happier lives, it must encompass all of these things. Okay? Thank you very much.
Hallelujah. Okay, we want to say a special thanks to Carlton. But before we say that, you might have an offering. So we're going to pick it up. So you're not going with the offering, you're leaving it in church. So somebody help me, please. Take an offering plate and pass around while I say thank you.
Deuteronomy 15:11. For there will never cease to be poor in the land. Therefore I command you, you shall open wide your hand. Deuteronomy 15:11. For there will never cease to be poor in the land. Therefore I command you, you shall open wide your hand to your brother, to the needy, and to the poor in the land. Hi, saints. Jesus cares. We care. To you. Introducing the Canefield Gospel Mission Women's Ministry biblically inspired initiatives of a food bank and soup kitchen focused on reaching the needy. We care. Women caring and reaching everyone. Join us by contributing dry goods or become a monthly donor of cash as the Lord blesses you. Let's all join forces to become Jesus' hands and feet on earth. Contact any of the members of the executive or call or WhatsApp 767-275-4203 for more information.
Okay, Sister Cassie, come over, please. She gonna? Oh, right at the back she is. I wasn't seeing her. Okay, I'm very brief. She's going to tell us something about what the advertisement we just saw there. So, yes, Sister Cassie.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Very quickly, the church, well, the elders of the church have agreed to contribute this month's missionary offering to the Women's Fellowship initiative that we started some time ago for the food bank. And as we have always emphasized that we know there are many needy persons in Dominica. The need is very, very high. Even among church persons, some of us may not know, but there are very needy people among us. So we started We Care, women caring and reaching everyone. And we're asking, we've been doing well. The Lord has been blessing us. We've gotten some barrels of food which we've distributed. Another barrel is on the way, and you have persons reaching out here and there giving us cash. So this month's offering is going to go towards the food bank, and well, we developed a little ad here, encouraging you to donate the dry goods, donate cash towards the food bank. The Lord always blesses a cheerful giver. So the more you reach out, the more the Lord blesses you. All right, and as we know that that was the Lord's thing. He would always reach out to the needy. He had compassion for the needy. The needy was one of his top priorities. and it should be ours as well. So if we are who we say we are Christians and we emulate Christ, then it should be our desire to help the needy. All right, so we are encouraging you, again, if you feel led by the Lord to donate, whether dry goods or cash. We prefer cash, because there are times when we come across somebody who's needy and we just go and shop for the person. We do that several times, because sometimes the goods you give close to expiry, or sometimes, you know, it's not all what you need to give to the person. So we prefer to have the cash and just go and do a shopping based on the family that we are trying to help at the time. So again, if it is laid on your heart to do it, you are not forced to do it. It has to be something that you are led to contribute the dry goods or the cash towards the food bank. Okay, so that is basically what we are sharing here. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, so we want to say special thanks to Brother Lando and his wife for accepting our invitation to come and talk to us on matters of health. And I know that you received something very, very substantial tonight. I think you would have to probably go to several doctors for you to get that in a number of years. So we thank you very much, and we want to tell you, keep up the good work. Continue to do what you're doing to educate persons on matters of health. As it says, we have so many men dying at an early age, and they live in the nice house, and some other man come and take out his shirt and on the porch and stretching his leg, and something he didn't work for. But we haven't much time for that. All right, so we want to close with prayer. All right, so stand with me. Let me ask Brother Bernard to just pray for us as we leave and go to our various homes.
All right, let's pray. Our Father and our God, we give you thanks, we give you praise. We just bless your holy name for the information that we have received, Lord Father. Because, Lord, you have given wisdom to men, Lord Father, towards our health. And, Lord, you need us to be healthy, Father, in order to do the things that you have called us to do. We need to be in a healthy body. So, Father, we thank you for the information that was dispensed towards us, Father, and we pray that, Lord, that we will take action and do the things that are necessary, Lord Father, that we may remain healthy. So we thank you for Orlando tonight, Father, we thank you for bringing him here. We thank you for the discussion that we had. We thank you for the questions that came up, and, Lord, the answers that he gave. So, Lord, we pray that, Lord, that we'll work on these things. So, Father, even as we leave this place, Father, I pray that you go before us. We pray that, Lord, you'll protect us and keep us, Lord God. I pray that, Lord, that you would minister to us throughout this week. Make us a blessing to somebody and to some other persons, Lord God, this week. So we give you thanks, we give you praise, we exalt your matchless name for who you are. Your God, and besides you, there is none else. So, Father, have thy way, we pray thee. In Jesus' name. Amen.
All right, God bless you. Tuesday night, hopefully, we're going to be having some young men to be speaking to us on Tuesday night. So we have 6 young men, so make sure that you're there. When you come there, you will see them for yourself. So make sure that you're there on Tuesday night.